like your participation.
It should be.
So I had, I'm not a picture girl, I'm a word girl. I had Major Depressive Disorder as my main umbrella. And I thought that the two things coming off of that would be genetics and one's environment. And then more specific is serotonin, which is what we talked about earlier with relation to genetics, and stress, because stress is a big part of one's environment.
Awesome, that's great. So that's something similar to this. Thank you. Okay, so that's really interesting. Because I saw other people, they went the other way, and that's kind of how I drew my diagram. So what I did was so we have, you're born with a certain genome, and let's say you're born with the two, you're homozygous, that's just homozygous. Homozygous for the short alleles, for the serotonin transporter gene. And remember, that slows down the recycling part of the serotonin production process. Oh, I'm sorry, my handwriting is awful. So mine's almost kind of like a math equation. So you have that plus your environment is really stressful. We put them in parentheses. It's stressful. Those two mean that you have a lot of stress and you can't regulate your mood level, make yourself not feel stressed because you can't recycle serotonin quickly enough. So that equals, that's the big equals, major depressive disorder. So that's just what I wrote. How many of you guys have something more similar to this where you took the two factors? Yeah. So both ways work. They're both great visuals, and that's just to help you kind of like, okay, this is how everything we've been talking about comes together. Okay. So, Okay, so now we're going to apply this to, it's not a real life case. It's not, this story isn't true, but it's based on real life cases. So we're going to take a look at this story, and then you guys get to draw another diagram. I like diagrams. Okay, so this is a story about Dan. Dan was born homozygous for, and this isn't on your sheet, so if you want to write down the information, please. So Dan was born homozygous for the short allele for the serotonin transporter gene. So Dan got stressed very easily and had frequent, but not severe, mood swings. He got through high school and college with decent grades, found a moderately well-paying job, and got married. Dan lived in that situation, so the well-paying job and married life, for 5 years, and though he sometimes felt overworked, he was generally very happy with his life. Then, within 1 year, Dan divorced his wife, lost his job, and discovered his father had cancer. For about a month during that year, within this 1 year, Dan didn't keep up with his normal exercise routine. He developed insomnia and went to a psychiatrist because he had considered committing suicide. So, I'd like you to draw a diagram explaining why Dan had this major depressive episode. My hint to you is figure out what part is the major depressive episode and work backwards. So, give you a couple minutes to do that. Feel free to ask questions. Oh, can you guys all read that? Something there for you.
Yeah, the important part is that you've narrowed down that the major depressive disorder happened. And, because of the symptoms, you're not exercising, the insomnia, and the suicide a lot. So basically, you can infer that that's just caused by the huge switch in the environment. So he was living in this really kind of happy, normal, suburban-ish life, and then he went through all these traumatic events. So you know that's caused him to have that major. Okay? Awesome. Do you guys have any questions? Do you guys understand? Do you have any questions?
Yeah, I think
Yeah. Okay.
you were really helpful with your first visit when you did that. It helped me.
Well, it's interesting to see who takes you took the main subject and then you kind of went down, and then some people start with these factors and make it add up. Both are right. I didn't when I was doing this, I didn't even think of your lens, so that was really cool. It's oh, that makes sense too. I'm glad you went up. Can I ask you to come up and draw yours? Are you okay with that? Yeah. I think that'd be good. Okay.
So, did anybody have any trouble figuring this one out? No? You guys are good? Okay, so I looked at Philip's drawing and I really like that one. So I'm going to ask him to come up and draw what he drew. Thank you. Okay. So, yeah, I like this one. So I think this breaks it down pretty well. So if we start with the first fact we're given, that he was born homozygous for the short allele for the serotonin transporter gene, that means he can be very easily stressed. Then he's living in the same environment for 5 years, where he's kind of have that suburban lifestyle of, oh, I got a good job and a wife, I'm just kind of happy. I feel overworked sometimes, but who doesn't? That kind of attitude. Then these three things happen, and some of these, like the lost job and the father, that can cause the prolonged stress. So he's having this for a long time. So the divorced wife, the lost job, and the discovering father had cancer, led him to not sleep. He lost his routine, or he's impaired. He's not doing what he normally does. He's not functioning correctly. And the thoughts of suicide. And that all happens within 1 month.